What is up, my people? Welcome back to the channel for another album review. I'm your boy Nassim the Dream. If you're new to the channel, just go right on ahead, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell as well to always keep notified on my newest content. And yes, today I will be giving my thoughts and review about the newest Drake and 21 Savage collab, Her Loss. Some of hip-hop's most popular and relevant names in the game, Drake and 21 Savage, have dropped a big-time collab following 7 years since the drop of the hot and classic What a Time to Be Alive. Not only is this a great album and one I personally would say is one of Drake's best that he's ever taken a part of, but this is also a really great comparison to really use for this new album and where it may be placed alongside it. And now, if I'm going to be honest, I did really lower my expectations to the very bottom of the floor, especially because if you've been keeping up with the channel, you already know how I feel about Drake's most recent projects. And as far as 21 Savage goes, I'd say he carries the most potential and hopes for me personally due to his most recent work. And I think another factor that I had to consider to really see how much I'd really dig this project is them not really picking a consistent producer to direct this entire project. Putting aside my old head hip-hop preferences, these two have clearly made hip-hop music that has appealed to a very, very large audience, and on occasion to me as well, and I'm coming here still hoping for the best. And early on, I will slightly spoil that this album definitely isn't bottom of the barrel garbage. We're gonna begin with the first track, Rich Flex, which I'm sure by this time this video's out, most of us are familiar with the song based off all the internet memes we've really been getting about Drake on this song. Y'all waste no time with these memes whatsoever. But minus the memes, this track does have something going for it as far as the intensity as a placeholder, and goes including with some interesting sampling and beat switch ups as well. But I am pretty turned off with the following track, Major Distribution, as it attempts to reel in an endearing piano passage performance sung by Drake in the intro, but this is really used as a fake out intro to really pull you into this shock factor of a dark hip-hop beat that goes a bit overboard. And I say that because I was seriously focused on Drake's intro on here because I was really digging the singing, and I was really hoping that something natural would really follow this, but this instrumental just doesn't really complement that moment that we just got. The beat on its own, yes, it's fun and it can really initiate that gross face effect, but it just seemed like a failed attempt of shock value where it doesn't really feel cohesive. Inevitably, we're not going to produce any mind-altering concepts in most songs related to trap music like this, which is obviously okay. It's not going to diminish anything based off the sound quality per se, but I will note some lines that did catch my attention on some of these songs. This is easily one of my favorites from 21 Savage that goes, met your wife in Vegas, but I hit her in Ibiza. She's a supermodel and she only eats Caesar. Specifically on this track, you definitely will catch some of the best wordplay and verse switches from these two. Though I will say the dragged out monologue on this single just doesn't really need to be here, or at least needs to be cut out way sooner. And I will also note some of the goofy lines that still did interest me, like when Drake was talking about how he never voted, but if he did, he would vote for Tiana Trump. The track Spin By You has some better reflections of R&B influences with Drake's singing performance at its proper tune and soulful vocal samples that indulges into giving some self-confidence and positive words to good women who feel insecure and underappreciated. And there definitely are a handful of moments where I felt like Drake was actually in focus for most of these songs, and I was really digging some of his flows, like with the track Treacherous Twins. But I think for this one in particular, I think I would have been fine with it if it was just him on this track, as I do feel like this were a couple times on certain songs, vice versa sometimes as well. Because once 21 gets onto this verse, I can't help but feel like he contradicts his verse early on where he talks about in the project about making people feel like they're features, where he sounds like a feature on this song. Now, 21 Savage is obviously one of those rappers that doesn't really show that much personality or emotion into his rap verses, but on this one, it just definitely felt like he did not want to be here. I can also see the appeal in some of these sound selection and samples that people are really applauding, but there are clearly some that are just kind of just used as clickbait. They even got a Daft Punk sample on here on the track Circo Loco that in my opinion was poorly recreated. On the track Pussy and Millions, this is probably the most consistent track overall that adds a little extra punch from the Travis Scott feature. I thought this beat actually really stood out. It almost felt like a kind of ring entrance for these rappers with the way that like the spotlight would glimmer on them as these horns blew bright after these 808 kicks and sub triggers. And we'll note the list for the producers tags on here are pretty interesting as well, noting Lil Yachty on here. While we're speaking about producers, Metro Boomin actually did make an appearance onto this album, specifically on the track More M's. I really did enjoy this song, especially with 21 Savage having most of the spotlight in here, as it gave me some callbacks to some of the Savage Mode tapes and the Without Warning collab with Offset. But at this moment in the album, I realized something. I really felt like 21 was underutilized for the majority of this record. This is obviously supposed to be a collab record with Drake and 21 Savage, but this doesn't really seem like as a ratio of 50-50 based off performance and inclusion. It really doesn't really compare to What a Time to Be Alive based off that ratio. On that record, for example, Drake and Future both had one individual track each, as well as the tracks that they were both on felt like they were both toe-to-toe based off intensity and performance. Where on this one, Drake has 4 individual tracks, and 21 Savage only has 1. Now, this isn't exactly something detrimental to the album's score, but the fact that this felt way more like Drake's album than it did 21 Savage's album is just kinda weird to me, just cause it felt like it could've had so many other moments with 21 in his comfort zone that would've made this album also feel like his, but instead just forced him into scenarios that aren't suited for him, or were moments where he just did not match Drake's focus level. 3 AM on Glenwood is the perfect example, as 21 dives into his feels and notions about street violence and the tragedies that come along with it. This song really does feel like a 21 Savage song. Why not trust him with more song inclusions like this on the record? I feel like it could have done so much for it. It just sort of makes me feel like they had no confidence in him. There were many moments where I felt like Drake and Savage were feeding off each other's energy and actually transforming it into a higher intensity that brings the X factor to the project in terms of hype value. But there's also points on the project, especially when they're both singing, that just come off unintentionally spoiled and hilarious. As far as Simple Verdicts goes for this album, it's pretty much a mixed bag with some pretty fun tracks that attain replay value, as well as pretty quality banger beats, and along with some consistent focus from one or both of these rappers. And the rest just being mediocre, dragged out, pretty forgettable, or poorly executed in hip-hop and R&B music. I'm gonna give Drake and 21 Savage her loss a 53%. Guys, as always, thank you so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed, go on and like, share, comment down below what you thought of this record. Down in the description, you see all the separate tracklist ratings I have for the album, more videos, and also the links to my social media accounts, so you can keep up with me on the daily. And I'm gonna catch you in the next one. Deuces.
21, can you do something for me? 21. Can you hit a little rich flex for me? 21. Then 21.